Welcome back to the How to Get a Job podcast. Today I have Anna Belyaeva. She is the CEO and founder of The Career Diet. Anna, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me here today, Daniel.
No, I am excited. I know we've talked a lot, and we actually, before we hit record, we're talking a lot about how the job market has changed and how job seekers are looking for jobs so differently. But before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your experience, and how long you've been in the career coaching space?
I have started the Career Diet actually exactly 6 years ago in July 2020. But before that, I was in the recruitment space and I was just naturally helping people around me, friends and family. So I feel like I have been coaching for close to a decade. But my journey actually started with really my own struggles figuring out how to job search and figuring out what is right for me and what path is right for me. And I am someone who moved abroad in my early adulthood, and I moved to Canada to do business school. And I remember that they would tell us all the things that you hear, right? Like you have to network and you have to do coffee chats, but no one actually told us and taught us how to actually do it. So I felt like I was working very hard towards my goals, but I wasn't really getting anywhere. So I really struggled in the beginning. And then I just fell into my first career in the CPA accounting world, working with the big four. And that first role that I got after business school actually pushed me to really see how hiring happens. And I was actually, leading recruitment for, those CPA roles. And I saw it's not about, what your resume really looks like, because a lot of resumes look very similar. But it was really about building those connections and getting in front of the right people. And I could really start seeing how that happens and how people do that. So that was my big aha moment. And that role also pushed me to essentially go to a lot of networking events, meet a lot of people. It just really pushed me to just start building those skills, whether I wanted to or not. And that made a big difference for me. So I ended up using those skills that I was building and the intel that I was getting from the inside to then transition careers altogether to consumer product sales. And from there, I ended up transitioning to enterprise sales, selling recruitments to major corporations. And that's where really everything came together for me, because I really saw hiring for senior roles for, let's say, 100,000 people organization. And I was also in a position where I was essentially networking for a living, because I was doing because I was doing enterprise sales. So my job was to find the decision makers, very senior VP level, EVP level executives, get them to meet with me, build that connection, build that relationship, and then get them to hire for me. So I really have been myself on every single side of job search as a struggling job seeker myself, trying to figure out how all of this works, then figuring out what the right career for me was, then really seeing how hiring works and going through that experience and really realizing, wow, most people who are even great for the job and seem like a perfect fit oftentimes don't get the job, and why that happens and how we actually hire without relying on online applications. And then over the last 6 years, I have now coached over 1,000 mid to senior professionals going for 150K plus roles and making big moves, moving countries with a new role, getting 50, 80K pay increases, pivoting careers, and including this new AI driven job market. So I've seen it from every single angle.
And you just said something really interesting. You've helped over 1,000 job seekers land 150K plus roles. You've seen 1,000 plus different job searching journeys, because no journey is ever the same, right? There's commonalities. I always use like the 80-20 rule. So you've seen patterns throughout those thousands of job seekers. What are some of the patterns or some of the commonalities that the people that get the best jobs faster have in common?
Ooh, I love this question, and I don't think anyone has ever asked me this question, so I really appreciate it. And you're very right to point out that no journey is the same. And that's why, by the way, I'm very hesitant to ever share, averages because we're never comparing apples to apples. Your starting point is different from someone else's starting point. Your goals are different. How much time you dedicate to job search every single week is going to be different. So everyone's journey is going to be different. But big picture, what I see is number one is consistency. I know it sounds so simple, but if you have a big goal, it's not going to happen by you casually scrolling through LinkedIn on your commute home a couple of times a week. And then the day when you're, very frustrated with your job is when you click on easy apply here and there on that commute. It's just not going to work like that. And especially in this new AI driven market when with AI, your application can look perfect. And then they're getting thousands of those quote
Yep.
unquote perfect looking applications. So everyone looks great on
Yep.
paper. So and again, the barrier to submitting those applications is pretty much not there. So consistency is one big piece where for clients, for example, for us, the way we work with clients, one of the first things that I do with them is I do a networking challenge with them where in a course of the course of 30 days, they get a number of networking meetings that I challenge them to set up within their target companies. And the number, again, is different for everyone based on their time and goals. But really building that, for example, muscle and that habit that every single week you have two networking meetings, four networking meetings. Again, depends on you and your goals,
Hmm.
but that consistency is what leads to results. Same with, let's say, interview practice. We're very big at the Career Diet on interview prep and practice. And we start very early on in the first couple of weeks, even if you're not interviewing right now. We start really early so that I call it you get in the best interview shape of your life. So I wake you up in the middle of the night and you're ready to go because when you're going for a 200K role, preparing 2 nights before, you're already behind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
It's
especially
really
like
in your bones at that point.
you might hear crickets from a company for weeks, and then you get an email be like, "Are you available Friday?" And it's Wednesday, and you're like,
Oh, shoot.
"Yeah, yeah." It's like, okay, yeah.
Shoot. Right? So we start prep early. And again, we're developing this habit, this muscle, because when you're actively job searching, it all needs to be top of mind. And all of those stories need to be prepared and practiced, and you're ready to go. So we put that practice on your calendar very early on, whether you're interviewing or not. And again, very simple, but people who actually stick with it, guess what? Then they are our top interviewees. And we see the difference so clearly because they're staying consistent with it. So consistency is, I would say, a really, really big piece. The second piece I would say is being open to doing things differently because we all have gotten jobs before, right? Especially, if you're not fresh out of school, people that we work with are, you know, a
Mhm.
decade minimum into their career. So you have gotten jobs before. So a lot of people, especially in this more competitive market, feel very frustrated that, listen, but I know how to do this. I have done this before.
Yep.
And they essentially repeat the same process over and over again that has worked for them 3 years ago or 10 years ago. And they're getting increasingly more frustrated that this is not working. And to that, I always say, well, did you actually do this before? Because 5 years ago, you were less senior and you were going for a less senior role that paid less. So we're going for a new role that we haven't landed before. And it's a new market. It's a different market. So we haven't actually done this before. So people who are really starting to question that, okay, well, the market is now more competitive. What do I need to do differently to still be successful? in it. So they're open to, and when I say doing things differently, I don't mean using AI to tailor your resume, because again, everyone is doing it, right? But doing things that no one else is doing. And I'm actually, that brings me to point number 3, and that is doing the uncomfortable thing that most people are not willing to do. And that can look like, I'll just give you a few examples. And we were actually just talking about it before we started recording. That can look like our clients send voice notes and they record videos. And they use that in their networking outreach. They use that in their interview process. And it feels very uncomfortable in the beginning for a lot of people.
Yep.
But again, it's a skill. And what I remind them is that, well, most people feel uncomfortable doing it. We even have people who pick up the phone, the old school phone, and cold call. And guess
Yeah.
what? Guess what? It works
Yeah.
because no one is willing to do it because it's scary.
That a couple of things that you're saying there, like it's super interesting because it is it's a trend that I'm seeing with just what I hear from career coaches all the time is a good resume is no longer a nice to have. It is just a ticket to enter the job market. And what
I call it the
ultimately
baseline. I call it the baseline.
it's a commodity now because
Mhm.
ChatGPT can make it, or even AI, right? Whatever you use, a ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. It ultimately makes every resume sound good. Like AI is already the most supportive friend you can have. Like, great job. You never have a bad idea with AI, right? It's like, great. I
Yes,
never
the
thought
answer
about
is
that.
always yes.
Yeah, the answer is always yes. Like, do you think I should apply for a CEO even though I graduated
Yes.
college? Absolutely. I never thought about that for you, but yes, like you should. So what happens is that a combination of everyone's resumes really good. If people used to lie and exaggerate before AI, imagine now, right? So it's even higher. And then now you have auto apply, which I know we talked about. You don't recommend your clients to do, and I was telling you how I don't recommend people, career coaches, have auto applying for their clients because the quality is not there. But now instead of having 100 people apply for a role, you have 1,000 people. So what does that ultimately mean? Is like you have 1,000 people applying to a role, and so how does the company, the HR department, the recruiter, the hiring manager know which one it is? You need interviewing becomes more important. Like the interview becomes even more important than it ever was before. And so the fact that you're getting your clients to consistently prepare to interviews ahead of time, it, like no wonder why your clients are getting results. Like that's a huge unlock there.
Yeah. And, I'll share something again, so simple, but I remind this to our clients every day that we have an interview coach on my team, and him and I, have known each other since business school. He's a hiring manager. He's a director at a bank right now. He's phenomenal. He comes from consulting
Yep.
background at Bain. He's phenomenal. And him and I talk about this all the time that, you know, people in the program, they all have the same access to the same resources,
Yep.
the same frameworks, the same, AI practice tools. We do peer mock interviews as well. And what he says is, when he gives me feedback on the mock interviews that he has had, he would always say, "Oh, this person was fantastic." And this is what we worked on, but they're in a really good shape already. And I would always say, I that this is not surprising to me because I know they have been putting in the
Hmm.
practice and the work. And then he would say, "Hey, and this person, has quite a bit of room for growth there." And I say, "Well, that's because I know they haven't been practicing.
Yeah.
They, did the foundations, they know what they need to prepare, but they haven't, and they haven't done the practice." And I know it sounds so simple, but it's just like with, I don't know, public speaking, right? There's a difference between writing out your speech, right? And being really good at delivering that speech, right? There is a big difference there. And then in an interview, it's even more challenging, right?
Yeah.
Because then there are questions, there are unexpected questions. And that's actually a big part of the practice too. This idea of unexpected questions, the more you have practiced, even the stories that you're preparing ahead of time, if you have done them hundreds of times, then it's really easy for you to plug in a new story into that same framework because it's really kind of in your bones. You're so used to it
Yeah.
versus you otherwise just crumble and you start rambling. So, or you can't think of a story in a moment, right? So I'm a big advocate of early practice for interviews.
What's interesting is that too. Like I see a big mistake when job seekers are doing this themselves, where they're like, "Okay, ChatGPT, I got an interview with, let's say, Amazon. Give me some mock interview questions that I should prepare for." And so, like, the ChatGPT would be like, "Here's some common questions that we've seen probably on
Mhm.
Reddit or Quorum, or like that they're being asked." And they go and they practice the answers for all these 10, 20 questions that they are assuming to do. And they might get two of those questions being asked, especially when a company has interview guides that every hiring manager has a parameter to stick with around. But what happens when there's a hiring manager that doesn't follow those questions, or they ask you a question that's not one of those, and you have, let's say that you answered the other questions on a scale of 1 to 10, you answered them an 8 or a 9, you did really good. And then you go and answer another question, and that was terrible because it wasn't something that you prepare for, because you prepare for the questions, not the frameworks. You don't know your story,
Yeah.
you don't know how to communicate like the value. And then you answer that at a 2 out of 10, and the hiring manager now sees, oh, I smelled the red flags. And
Mhm.
now I just don't feel like everything else you said is no longer genuine. And so that one question could literally ruin the rest of the interview for you, because you didn't really solve the root cause problem of you communicating your value, because you just memorized some questions.
Yeah. And we go very deep. We look at, we anticipate objections that the employer will inevitably have to
Yep.
hiring you, whether, it's specific experience or skills that you don't have or you don't have enough of. Maybe you moved, maybe you're shifting industries, whatever that is, there are always objections that they would have. And the way most people prepare for them, right? They think, okay, well, they will probably ask me about, you know, my experience with SQL, and I know that they're looking for this depth and I only have done this. So they would maybe
Hmm.
about that one specific question, but it's very reactive, right?
Yep.
So maybe they will ask about it, maybe they won't, but the objection is still there.
Yep.
So the employer then walks away thinking, okay, that was great, but he or she actually doesn't have enough leadership experience or they haven't actually led a team before, whatever that might be in your case. So we actually teach clients how to think about that proactively, how to really dissect what's important for the employer, that really look at, okay, with that, what do I need to be talking about? Not the questions that I will be answering, but what is it based on what's important to the employer? What is it that I have to talk about? Very specific examples and parts of my experience. And every single time we bring it back to the employer and why it's important to them. And we proactively speak about those objections, right? Like we actually start, you tell me about yourself. And we
Yep.
really bring it up very intentionally and strategically so that we pre-handle that objection essentially
Yep.
when you ask about it or not.
Yep.
So, and to me, if you're doing this the night before or 2 nights before, I actually believe this is really, really hard, if not impossible to do from zero if you have not interviewed in years to that level of depth and prep. I don't know if it's possible to do in a couple of nights.
Yeah. It's challenging. And again, I think that the market has changed so much. Even when you started 6 years ago, I
Mhm.
think, like, I've been in the career coaching industry now, like, work for 12 plus years. And I think about how things used to be pre-COVID. Like, it's like the in-person interview, like, it was all, there was a lot more personal. And then we went to COVID and everything, like, went to virtual interviews. And now there's like this hybrid, because the first couple of round of interviews are
Yep.
now even virtual still. And not every company has you go back go into the office. Now some of that's coming back. And I think that the more senior the role, the more they really want to meet you in person. But you have this, like, and now you have AI on top of that. And so you add all these layers of complexity that it is like a full-time job staying up to date with the trends. And for most people, their full-time job should be their career, not figuring out what's working and what's not working in the job market. And I think that's, to me, where hiring a career coach becomes a no-brainer. And it's just finding the right career coach that fits your background and what your goals, and do they have the track record of success, and all of that. But Anna, I can't believe we're already in time. If people want to learn more about you, the career diet, your services, how you work with clients, what is the best way for them to learn more and to connect with you?
I would say first start with the Career Diet podcast. And if you give me a moment, I will actually pull an episode for you that would be an excellent start. So I would recommend.
So wherever you're listening to this podcast, you can also just type the Career Diet podcast and you will be able to listen to this.
uh, Sorry, I wanted to I like to give like a podcast like episode number. I can hear. Oh, okay, found it. I would recommend that you start with the Career Dive podcast. Maybe start with episode 47, which is where I talk about what we just actually finished with, that you should be focused on, your professional skills and not figuring out what works in the job market. So in that episode, I talk about how job searching is a set of skills, how it's actually a sales skill, very much so, to be able
Mhm.
to create that opportunity and close that opportunity. So I know it resonates with a lot of people. Episode number 47, that's a great start. And as always, shoot me a message on my Instagram, The Career Diet, or on LinkedIn under my full name, Anna Belyaeva. And I would love to hear from you how this resonated. Maybe there was an aha moment or a question that came up for you. Would love to hear from you.
And no, thank you so much. We'll put a link to your Instagram, your LinkedIn, your website, and episode 47, Job Search is Selling, because I actually have it right here pulled up. 26-minute episode full of value. I'll make sure you check it out. If you found value in this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a review. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Bye, everyone.
Bye.